Hi, everyone. Welcome back to week 3 of More Than a Hashtag, a series on justice. And we are in week 3 of this series. And we're going to share the screen real quick so that you can see what I'm seeing here. And we'll pull that up. Hopefully, you guys are having a good week. And it's still very hot. So hopefully, you're staying cool out there and getting some good pool time or beach time and enjoying some outdoor time a little bit. And let's see here. We'll get this up. Here we go. More Than a Hashtag. Hopefully you're seeing that on your screen. And so we have been using Micah 6:8 as our theme verse for this series on justice. And 2 weeks ago, we looked at the first section of this, which is act justly. And then last week, we looked at the idea of loving mercy. And then today, we're going to be looking at what it means to walk humbly with your God. What does it mean to walk humbly with your God? And so humility is what we're going to be looking at and exploring today. And there's one thing I see on social media a lot, and sometimes in person, that it just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Maybe you've seen this also and kind of know what's happening when people post this. It's called the humble brag. This is when people are bragging about something they did or who they are, and they're doing it in like this way that's like kind of humble, like on the side, like low-key bragging a little bit. And so we're going to look at just 3 tweets from people that illustrate this point. So the first one is from this account called Totes My Goats, and they said, "I just realized I've only showered in 1 of my 5 showers since I've moved here. This must change." Wow. All right. We feel having 5 showers, that's hard. It's a rough life. Kevin Hart posted this on his Twitter account. "I'm watching the UCLA and Florida game in amazement." Wow, that's awesome, Kevin. That's so cool you're watching that game. "Because I performed in the same arena where they're playing now, and it's sold out. Hashtag God is good." So Kevin is letting people know he's watching this game. It's a great game. But he's letting people know that he's watching this game, and like because he's also performed at that arena where they're playing, and it's sold out. So it's kind of like this humble brag that he's doing. And this is probably my favorite. This lady named Cheryl posted on her Twitter, "I just did something very selfless, but more importantly, it was genuine. And I know it means a lot to the person in the long run. Hashtag so worth it." So I love it because she's announcing to the world that she did something very selfless. It's almost comedic how hypocritical that is. And so, yeah, there's all these ways that people kind of do a humble brag, right? Where they just post something on social media, or they say something to friends or other people, and they don't want to come out and just say it like, "Hey, I'm awesome," but they'll say, "Hey, I'm watching this awesome game, and I performed there and it sold out." So it's stuff like that where we see in our culture, in our world, humble brags happen all the time. Now, have you ever been guilty of a humble brag? Have you ever been in a situation or remember a time you posted something where you wanted to let people know that you're awesome, but you didn't want to come across of it. You didn't want to do it in a way that came across like you were bragging or you're prideful. So you did it kind of in a low-key way. What does it actually mean to be humble? Okay, so what does it actually mean to have humility and to be humble? Think about that for a second. What does it mean to be humble? Well, we're going to look at this quote by C.S. Lewis, which I think is a great way to understand humbleness. And he says, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less." So let's break that down for a second. He says, humility is not thinking less of yourself. And sometimes we think that humility is like that we have to think that, oh, we're horrible, we're not that good, and we start thinking less of ourselves. But he says it's not that. It's not being down on yourself about your talents or abilities or gifts. He says it's really just thinking of yourself less. So let's say you're playing a sport or activity and you're really good at it. Instead of taking the limelight or really trying to bring attention to yourself, you're thinking about other people on the team or the group more than you are focused on bringing yourself popularity or self-glory to yourself during the game or when you're in the group. So that's a brilliant quote by C.S. Lewis that really sums up humility really well. It's thinking of yourself less, not thinking less of yourself. So here's the question. How does humility and justice and the justice God desires connect? So this whole series has been about justice. So we're talking about humility, and you may be thinking, okay, I get this idea of humility. I want to be humble, but how does this connect to what God wants to do in the world in correcting wrongs and helping people? How does justice that God desires connect with humility? Well, two ways that we see it connect in kind of an opposite direction. So the opposite emotion and quality and virtue of humility is pride, envy, selfishness, and all of that leads to injustice. Think about all the wrongs in the world. You could pretty much whittle it down to one of these three. People were really prideful, and so they were being insulted, and they were hurt in their pride, and they wanted to be really prideful and show that they weren't weak, and so they maybe punched the person back. That was injustice. That was a wrong that happened. Envy, selfishness, all of these things lead to the injustices in the world. So when we're practicing humility, we're, in a very personal way, fighting against injustice. And we start to take ownership of that. We're saying, no, we're not going to be prideful, envious, or selfish. We are going to be humble. And the second point is that we miss the point of being humble if we are serving for the gram. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that if you are going on some missions trip, if you're going on a day to serve somewhere with a group and you're helping people who are underprivileged or who need help, maybe you're doing something to fight against some sort of injustice in the world, you're going to a march, and your sole reason for doing this and a big reason of why you'd be going to that day or event is because you need to get the pictures to post on your Instagram or Snapchat. If you are doing it for that reason, we're missing the point, right? That goes back to selfishness, but it's a little more practical and concrete. And we see this a lot. And I don't want to say posting to social media about something good you're doing or some sort of injustice you're trying to fight is bad. That's not what I'm trying to say. Because God cares about the heart. And so if you go into the day and you're not really thinking and some pictures get taken and you take some pictures and then later you decide you want to post those, go for it. You're not doing it for your own glory. Maybe you're doing it to raise awareness for some sort of cause that is in the world. And so it's stuff like that where you just want to check your heart. Are you doing it so that you get the likes or the attention? Or are you genuinely doing it, and if pictures get taken and they get posted, that's fine. And so that's some things to think about when it comes to humility and justice. How do these two connect? And my question to you is, do you want to be seen as someone who is humble? So I think it's an honest question to ask ourselves. Is that a type of character quality that you want to be seen as and that you personally want to be working on? Because if you don't, then there's a lot of other things that we need to be talking about. But if it's something that you want to be striving for, then this message is for you. And it's something that you want to be focusing on and how it connects to justice in the world. Now, we're going to be looking at a person who is famous and will probably be famous for all of history and time, is this lady right here. And if you don't know who this lady is, this is Mother Teresa. She was a Catholic nun who went to go serve in one of the poorest and destitute areas in the world, in the country of India, in a small town called Calcutta. And so Calcutta had a home of people of leprosy, of illnesses, of the poorest of the poor, and she felt called to go serve and love those people. And because of her humility, her humbleness to lower herself to help these people, and to not think, oh man, I have to go have fun all the time, or I have to go, just think about me and how good my life is. But she offered her life as almost an offering to these people, that she just wanted to give her life away to help others. And this is a quote she has when we think about what motivated Mother Teresa to do this. And she says, I see Jesus in every human being. I say to myself, this is hungry Jesus, I must feed him. This is sick Jesus. This one has leprosy or gangrene, I must wash him and tend to him. I serve because I love Jesus. And when we think about that, that is a great way of understanding how to continue to move towards humility and justice. That when we start seeing people around us as Jesus, that in a way that we treat people with the dignity and respect that we would if they were Jesus. How would we respond to someone if they were actually Jesus? These are questions that help merge justice and humility together. And we're going to be looking at a verse that shows this idea. So Matthew 25, 34 to 40, Jesus is giving a illustration of what it will be like when he comes back and he judges the world. And this illustration is called the sheep and the goats. The sheep and the goats. And so we're going to be picking this up in 43 to 40. So, 34 to 40. Jesus starts, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you do for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And here we have Jesus giving this illustration to remind us that God is very much present with those who are on the fringe of society. And that in a very unique way, those who are poor, those who are destitute, those who are hungry, those who are sick, those who are in prison, is those people who need Jesus. And that when we go to them and serve them and love them, that not only do they need Jesus, here we have this amazing teaching from Jesus that he's saying in a very unique and almost mysterious way, you are serving me. And Jesus connects divine dignity with a group of people that we tend to just dismiss, and maybe not even think God is near. He says, whoa. Actually, I'm more near than you would ever think when you serve these type of people. And so that just is a radical teaching. That's something you will not find anywhere else in the world. That when we love and serve those who are on the fringe, who are underprivileged, who are in need of care and support, when we serve those people, that we are serving Jesus. And so how do we treat people? How do we treat people like that? Are we going to be prideful, or are we going to have humility? And this is the verse that we're going to go through. And so this is another quote from Mother Teresa. She says, we try to pray through our work by doing it with Jesus, for Jesus, and to Jesus. that helps us with our whole heart and soul into doing it. The dying, the crippled, the mentally ill, the unwanted, the unloved, they are Jesus in disguise. Wow, what an amazing quote. So I have a question for you. Who is someone who could be Jesus in disguise? So think about that. Who is someone you know, or just someone in society that you could maybe bump into that you would say could be Jesus in disguise? Have you ever had the opportunity to serve someone? Have you ever genuinely had that opportunity to go serve someone who is in need? And so now we're going to look at another verse that starts connecting this even more to Jesus. And the verse is Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 through 8. Now, I won't forget to switch the slides here when we go through. Those are those last slides the other time. Those are just the verses I read. So this time, I'll read them from the screen so you can follow along. So let's read this passage. Philippians 2, 3 through 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. And so we have this amazing image that's painted for us of what God did. The second person of the Trinity, Jesus, he did not stay up in heaven or surrounded by praise and glory of the angels. He did not stay distant from people, but Jesus came very near to us, and he did not consider equality with God something to be taken to his advantage. He did not use his divine nature to force people to do something, to take advantage of people, to coerce people to do something. He didn't see that as something that he could use for his own prideful or selfish gain. But in a sense, he emptied himself and became fully human. Excuse me. And so, in doing that, we have a model for us. This is our leader, and we want to follow the example of our leader. And so, Jesus does three things with him coming down to earth, dying for us, and raising again. And this is starting to kind of wrap up our whole series. So Jesus' death was an act of justice because through it, he restored everyone who puts their trust in him to a right place with God. Jesus' death and resurrection was an act of mercy because it gave us the opportunity to be spared from the punishment we deserve. And Jesus' death was an act of humility because through it, he put you and me before him. For Jesus, walking humbly, loving mercy, and doing justice are all connected. What would walking humbly with God look like in your daily life? What would that look like? How would your life change? And what's one way you're going to walk humbly this week? Think about these things, pray about these things this week, and see what God does in your life. Hopefully this series was beneficial for you as we looked at this verse, Micah 6:8, and how it applies to our life when it comes to fighting against injustice in the world. How do we live for God in the midst of so many different social injustices that are happening? And how do we as Christians engage in that? So hopefully this painted a good picture for you and it was helpful. You're encouraged to go back and watch the other 2 weeks on YouTube. And we'll see you soon. Okay.